Christmas craft season is officially upon us, and today I'm going to show you how to make these cute little felt stockings. They're the perfect size for hanging on the tree, and they're open at the top so you can pop a little gift inside. If you would like to make these, you will need a selection of felt. I've got this lovely cream, a nice dark burgundy, and I've got some green felt as well so we can add the tree to the front of the stocking. You will also need a pair of nice sharp scissors, an embroidery needle, some embroidery thread as well. I've got some DMC threads here. I've also got this really pretty light gold metallic thread. This is a Light Effects thread by DMC. I've then got a couple of scrappy bits that I'm going to use from my scrap jar. These just match the colours of my felt. You're also going to need some twine or a piece of ribbon so we can hang the stocking just like I've done here. And then last of all, just some craft bells. The first thing we're going to do is cut out the main shape of the stocking. So we're going to cut out two pieces, one for the back and one for the front. To make this a little bit easier, I've made myself a rough template with a piece of paper so that I can cut around it. So I'm starting with my cream felt, which I'm just going to smooth out, and I'm just going to pop my template down here in the corner. So using my scissors, I'm just going to cut around it roughly first of all, just to remove the rest of the felt. So just like this, so we're working with a smaller piece. So now I'm just going to move the stocking into the corner of the felt and I'm going to cut around it. Here we go. So just with my scissors, just working my way around the edges. I'm going to do this as tidily as possible, but I'm going to give it another little tidy up afterwards as well. Felt is so lovely to work with, and what's great about it is that it doesn't fray, so you don't have to worry about any messy edges once you're finished. So I'm just going to cut this last edge, just removing the last of that felt. So here's the first piece of our stocking. Now we need two layers, so I'm going to cut another piece for the back. So I'm going to lay the stocking on top of another piece of felt and I'm going to cut around it. Now this will ensure that both pieces are the same shape and size. So now we've got our two pieces. I'm just going to check the edges, and if any are looking a little bit wonky, I'm just going to give them a little tidy up, just like this one here, just to ensure they are as matching as possible. So here we've got the front piece and we've got the back piece. So now it's time to add some stitching. So the first detail we're going to add is this burgundy edging around the top of the stocking. It's really pretty. We've got a couple of little stars on there just to add a little bit of Christmas sparkle. So for this, I'm just going to grab my burgundy felt and I'm going to start just by cutting a smaller piece. And now to make sure it's the correct width, I'm just going to lay it on top of the stocking and I'm just going to cut it down using my scissors. Here we go. So this is being cut to the correct width. I am just going to cut it down a little bit. It's a little bit too deep at the moment. So just grabbing my scissors again and I'm just going to give it a little trim. And I'm just going to check I'm happy with the size. Just going to lay that on top. That's looking good. So now I'm going to add these pretty little stars using this DMC Light Effects thread. This is in shade E677. It's a lovely light gold colour. It's very pretty and sparkly. So I'm going to use two strands for this. So I'm just going to separate those out now, and then I'm just going to tie a little knot on the end. So I'm going to add three little stars to this edging. I'm going to start here in the middle, and this is going to be using straight stitch. It's one of my favourite beginner-friendly stitches because once you stitch them in a star shape, they look really pretty. So pull your thread all the way through, then to create this first straight stitch, push your needle back through the felt just below, just like this. Now we're going to create 5 spokes all together, so I'm just going to do exactly the same for number 2. Just pushing that needle back through at the base of that first straight stitch. Now work your way around in a star shape, creating 3 more spokes. So here's our first star nearly finished, and I'm just going to add one either side. So here's our finished edging. We've got 3 stars all together. Now we're going to attach it to the front of the stocking. So grab your piece of felt and then lay it on top. Now I'm going to grab myself 2 strands of this lovely burgundy thread, which matches my felt, and I'm going to attach it on just using running stitch. So running stitch is another great beginner-friendly stitch. You start by pushing your needle up through the fabric, then you create a series of little stitches by passing the needle in and out of the fabric. Just be sure to keep a similar distance between the stitches to keep them looking really neat. I'm keeping my stitches quite small for this, but it's going to hold the edging in place really securely. So here is our edging all attached using running stitch. Now we've done that, it's time to add some more detail, so we're going to add the tree. So for the tree, I'm just going to start by cutting myself a smaller piece of green felt. And I'm just going to cut it again just to avoid working with a piece of felt that's quite large. So now I'm just going to cut the edges and I'm going to turn this piece of felt into a triangle. Just cutting off the second side as well. And here we go. So now we're going to attach the tree onto the front of the stocking. So I'm just going to place it nice and central. And I'm going to do this using 2 strands of green thread. And we're going to do this using running stitch. So very similar to when we attach the edging. So I'm just going to start off my running stitches just around the edge. And I'm just going to hold the tree in place just with my thumb. You could pin it on as well. That's another option to hold it in place. So very similar to when I was stitching the edging on, I'm just keeping my stitches very small, just keeping them really neat and tidy. So I'm just going to add in the final stitch and then I'm just going to knot the thread on the back to hold it in place. So now our Christmas tree is attached, we are just going to add this zigzag pattern. So for this I'm using 2 strands of the DMC Light Effect thread and I'm going to start just by pushing my needle through at this bottom corner of the Christmas tree, and then I'm just going to push it back through diagonally across. So push the needle through and then pull the thread, just making sure it's holding nice and securely. Now to continue the pattern, we are just going to zigzag the thread across the tree, working our way up till we reach the top. So I'm just going to add one last stitch across the tree and then I'm just going to secure my thread on the back with a knot. And there we go, there's the full zigzag pattern. So we've got some more details to add to the tree. So we're going to add a star and then we're going to add on a little trunk. So I'm going to start with the star. I'm going to stitch the star using the exact same method as we did to stitch the stars on the edging. So it's a 5-spoke star, and again I'm using 2 strands of the DMC Light Effects thread for this. I'm going to add one more stitch to make it look like the star is sitting on top of the tree. So just a little straight stitch from the top of the tree to the centre of the star. So that's our little star added on. So now we're going to add on a little trunk to the bottom of the tree. So to do this, I am using 3 strands of brown thread, and I'm just going to start by marking the centre just here, pushing my needle through, and I'm just going to connect it to the bottom of the tree, so creating a satin stitch. And then I'm just going to make it a little bit thicker by adding a stitch either side. So now just adding the second stitch, pulling that thread all the way through, and then I'm going to add a third stitch. And this is just going to make the trunk look that little bit thicker. And here we go, we have got our tree complete with its star, and we've got a little trunk at the bottom. So for some more sparkle, we're now going to add on some craft bells to the bottom of the edging. These little gold craft bells are 6mm in size, and they're just perfect for adding on some extra detail. These are super simple to add on, so I'm just using some burgundy thread, so 2 strands, and I'm just going to push my needle up through the fabric. Now I'm just going to loop my needle through the whole of the craft bell, and then I'm going to push my needle back through the felt, just a couple of millimeters away, and then I'm going to pull my thread all the way through, just like this, and that's going to hold the bell on there really nice and securely. I'm going to do exactly the same to add the second bell, so I'm just going to push my needle through where I want the bell to sit, and then I'm just going to pull that thread all the way through, and then just loop my needle again through the whole of the craft bell, and then I'm going to push my needle back through, again just a couple of millimeters away, pulling that thread through, and that's going to hold that second bell in place nice and securely as well. And now I'm going to use the exact same method to add the third craft bell. I've linked these particular bells in my Amazon storefront. I use a lot of them at Christmas time, and they even jingle, which adds a nice touch, and they're just the perfect size. There we go, so that's all 3 little bells attached. They look really cute. So now we've finished adding all of the detail to the front of the stocking, it is now time to stitch both pieces together. So now I'm just going to lay the front piece on top of the back piece of the stocking and make sure they're lined up nicely, ready for stitching. I'm going to stitch them together around the edge using running stitch. So to do this, I've got 2 strands of cream embroidery thread, and I'm just going to work a running stitch all the way around the edge of the stocking. Very similar to before, I'm going to keep my stitches quite small and evenly spaced, just to keep them looking nice and tidy. So we've stitched the 2 pieces together all the way around. Now we just need to add some twine so we can hang it up. I've left a little gap here in the top corner so we've got room to attach it. So now grab your twine or your ribbon and cut off a length that can be used to hang the stocking. I'm using this really lovely festive baker's twine. Now take your cutting and just fold it in half and then tie a knot at the bottom. Just make sure it's nice and secure and then trim off any excess. So now just grabbing the knotted end, I'm just going to tuck this into the opening at the top of the stocking, just giving it a little nudge towards the edge. So now I'm just going to weave my needle in and out, just creating those final running stitches whilst also looping the needle through the twine. So here's my final stitch going in, and once I'm happy with how secure the twine is, I'm just going to knot the thread on the back of the stocking. So here is our finished stocking. It's going to look so cute hung up on the Christmas tree. I've left the top open so you can pop a little gift inside, some sweets, or maybe even a little candy cane just like this, just to add some more festive flair. Will you be giving this one a go this Christmas? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Happy stitching.